Well, I started pretty young. I was in high school when I bought my first piece of property. I knew what I wanted to do before I ever got started in it. And I loved to go home when I was in school and see what my dad was doing and be involved in whatever was going on in the farm. My name is Jhan LaRosh. I'm a farmer in Osborne County, Kansas, and proud to be one. When I was a small boy, it was always a family affair. And we all pitched in to get the wheat harvested. It was always a little more exciting time of the year, just to get to see what your crop will produce. And it's always neat to see the combines go through the field and take the seeds out of the heads of the wheat and fill your trucks. Usually took it to the elevator, and sometimes we had to use pickups and get to ride in the pickup, and the elevator lifted the pickup up to dump the seed out of the back because there's no hoist on pickups, and that was kind of fun. And that's some of the memories I had. It was usually hot, but that's all we knew. Well, the 55 that you seen in the 2015 harvest video was my first combine that I bought personally myself. This particular combine is a 1959 model. I bought it from my father-in-law in 1980. And I used it for several years as the only machine I had. It was something that I could afford back then, and it cut the acreage I had down. And I kept it all these years because I would harvest alfalfa seed. And I just never did get rid of it. It had sat for about 12 years in a shed. Over the time there were some things like finger guides on the auger that had gotten brittle and broke out, and we had to replace those, but just minor things. From harvesting alfalfa seed, you run it on the ground, and we had to convert the header and put the reel on, find the reel chain. I kind of misplaced it, had to find another chain to drive the reel. And basically just adjust a few things and grease it and lube it up. Fresh gas. Well, about a month or so before wheat harvest, we decided to get this out and get it ready, and decided to throw the thresher on, and a huge cloud of dust blew out of this thing, just the blackest old dust. And in the meantime, a little family of mice had made their little home in there, and they got ejected out the tail. And the dirt was so bad, I think it blinded them, and they would just stand in there kind of running around in circles, kind of like 3 blind mice. So, but it worked. My son that farms with me, that's in the video, Kenton, he mentioned a few years ago it'd be kind of nice to bring that old 55 out and put it in the video along with the newer machines. And so we had a nice evening to get a shot of it. The later combines, they've increased the capacity because the farm size has gotten somewhat bigger. And the newer combines are a different type of thresher. They're a rotary. Instead of a cylinder is what they call a conventional thresher, which the 55 has. But basically a lot of the difference is capacity, power.
I'm using just half of my engine load.
I'm going 2.2.
And a cab. We don't miss the heat and the bugs. If you don't have to drive it very long, it's kind of pleasant. If you have to be on it all day, it gets pretty tiring. We run it a pretty small amount of time. Probably about 2-3 hours is all we really run the machine. As I say, after studying for 12 years, we freshened up the interior of the combine. It's not a new experience for my wife because she used to run that combine in our earlier years, but my daughter had never got to. And my son had never really got to harvest any wheat with it. That's another reason we wanted to get it out. He wanted to see what it was like to harvest wheat with that machine. Just a simple machine compared to some of the technology you got to go through on the new ones. I mean, it was good combine in its day. It's a different crew a little bit. I have Jim Dibble, the banker of mine, and has since retired and kind of enjoys coming out to the farm and getting to be part of the harvest. He was a farmer too. Doug Wilfong, he is my banker. People say, how do you get your banker to drive your trucks? And I kind of joke with them, well, you know, you got to be in pretty deep and they're worried about where that grain goes. So that's how. And my daughter, she is one of my combine operators, and of course my son that farms with me. Are they characters? Well, yes, but that's what makes it fun. Kelly's a pretty big jokester. Kelly Jim calls him old school, and I think he kind of likes that anyhow. Rusty, you know, he's just kind of our entertainment. Keeps everybody light up, and he does some pretty crazy things, but he really can't help it. You know, he's an Australian bred dog, a blue heeler, and they got dingo in him. So I just say, can't help it, he's got dingo in him. We had a viewer that sent Rusty some Purina Beneful meals. He got 6 of them in the mail and a letter to himself. Of course, somebody had to read it to him, but he enjoyed them. We moved pretty quickly through the harvest. Very few breakdowns and weather. Not very much rain right during that time. We had one shower that I could remember that slowed us up a day probably.
It's like pretty heavy rain coming.
I'd say a little below average for yield, but a good harvest. And it's nice to have the family and the grandchildren around. They enjoy being here. They're pretty young, but they like to play with their combines and tractors, and that's what it takes to get it in your blood, is start playing with those and want to be, you know, in and involved with it at a young age. And as far as I can remember, that's what I wanted to do too. Farm Bureau has a program that if the family farm has been in for 100 years, they recognize you, give you a little sign and a plaque. My ancestors homesteaded the area in 1871, so it'll be about 145 years. It's been kind of passed on down through the generations. That cross is a marker for my mother and father in a place where my father wanted to have his ashes spread along with my mother, and it's just a reminder for them and for their faith. When I did start, my father was still in a partnership with his brother, so there was really no place for me there. I just had to start on my own. And not so far from my father, about 9 miles, but close enough that we could share equipment and I could help them and repay with labor. I just bought what I considered a small farm. It was a 360-acre farm. And let me tell you, that was quite a challenge. Most bankers don't believe an 18-year-old is ready to settle down and do that kind of a commitment. It took quite a bit of paperwork. And my father asked me how I was going to make the payments, and I told him, I said, well, there's an old dairy barn on it, and I'd milk cows. And he says, oh yeah, I know, you're really not that wonderful time when it comes to milk at home. And he just didn't understand how bad I wanted to farm. But the challenges at first were horrendous. The place was kind of run down. Cows didn't have any shelter. First winter was pretty horrific. Had a pretty cold January and we had a lot of frostbite. So it was very tough, very tough. I feel like my whole family, 4 children, had a privileged life. Not an easy one maybe, but they did learn responsibilities early. By having a dairy, there's always plenty of chores. As soon as the kids could go out and help chore, they were expected to take care of the animals and the calves. And some of my children enjoyed milking better than others, and some of them enjoyed feeding better or helping in the house with house chores too. I think it was, and they might disagree, but it was a good place to grow up. And I've had people tell me that they have pretty good work ethic from raising on a dairy farm. I feel it's important that people understand that we are a family farm. We're not just a corporate, large farm. We're just like any other family business. We're trying to make a living and grow food for the people of the world, not just America. And I am proud to grow food for people. It's a challenging but rewarding occupation. It seems like always the expenses want to outdo your income. So it's pretty challenging to try to keep everything in check. Some of the challenges nowadays is a lot of technology, and you have to change to stay on top of things. So it's always something different. Commodity prices have been good in the last 5-6 years, but right now we're in a low time of prices, and it's going to be a difficult time until they turn around again. A lot of people, I believe, might take their food for granted. Doesn't really understand what it takes to produce food, and we take great pride in how we go about raising our crops and our cattle. I know some people think that, we don't really take care of our cattle, but we are very concerned about our cattle welfare, because if our cattle aren't doing good, we don't make good money. I mean, the profits are lost pretty easily if you don't treat them right. We have adopted the no-till way of farming to conserve our topsoil, keep it from washing and wind erosion, and to build the organic matter in our soils. We believe it also conserves quite a bit of moisture. You go out and put seed in pure dry ground, and you got to have faith that that seed's going to germinate and grow you a crop so you can do it again the next year. And I contribute my success to my faith in Jesus Christ, and if it wasn't for Him, I probably wouldn't have made it this far. And He has allowed me to do what I enjoy, and I give Him the praise for that. I didn't feel like college was really for me. I didn't enjoy school that much, but I did have this farming in my blood. So I knew what I wanted to do for a long time. Never wanted to be anything else but.